Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Michael here and welcome to the second of many Fallout 4 builds to come on FudgeMuppet. Today we have a beast melee build crafted in the flames of the FudgeMuppet Forge to fit a more evil playthrough of Fallout 4. Like many of you, we found playing an immoral character in Fallout 4 to be harder than in previous Fallout games, but this build will make the evil experience a lot more plausible than most people think. This raider is all about living life to the fullest. And by the fullest, we mean from the perspective of a man who has slowly lost his mind and finds pleasure in his one talent, killing. The raider brings death to those he believes stand between him, his survival, and the greater good. This build exclusively uses melee to attack enemies face to face, however the raider will have to carry a ranged weapon to use against turrets and other threats which exist in unreachable places. This build can use power armor if you wish, however we've made him so tough he can take on any opponent without it. The raider will have a range of melee weapons to use for his various moods, but this also has situational practicality as certain enemies are easier to defeat with specific weapons. A playthrough with the raider has an extremely gnarly feel to it, and this is awesome for anyone wanting a more action-packed, crazy fun experience in Fallout 4, filled with cinematic finishes and plenty of player freedom. I'd also like to let you know that in the description, these Fallout 4 builds have links to the sections within the video. So if you want to go back to a certain spot or skip through a part, now you can. For the people that love a good backstory, let's get into it. You could say the raider was born for battle. His father was a soldier, his father's father was a soldier, but the raider's story does not begin in war. It begins right here, in Boston. The raider led a very normal American life throughout his younger years. His strength made him a relatively valuable member of the baseball team in high school. He received pass grades for his tests, and he ended up meeting a girl there who he fell in love with. She was a nerdy sort of girl, but he really liked her, and they married early. With the invasion of Alaska and war waging with China, the raider decided to enlist in the military to fight for his country and protect the ones he loved. After excelling through the recruitment process, especially in close quarters combat, the raider was stationed in Alaska, and it was here he would work for the next 3 years with small amounts of leave that he would spend with his wife. On the battlefield, the raider was an efficient killer, and because of his natural skill, he was promoted to work with a team of commandos to take on more high-profile missions that would include taking out dangerous targets and sabotaging enemy compounds. As time went on, the raider became accustomed to killing on a regular basis. Taking the life of another was fulfilling an objective, not an act that had any sort of morality or consideration attached to it. To his own surprise, killing seemed to bring the raider a sense of achievement. He'd never excelled majorly at anything before, however now he had found something he was really talented at and others respected him for. Overall, the raider enjoyed his time with the military, but he would never speak to anyone about his unexpected feelings of contentment and happiness. After arriving home on leave one winter, the raider spent some quality time with his wife and Sean was conceived. The raider decided he would not return to the military. He would see if he could settle down and live a more routine and peaceful life with a family. Eventually, with his child born, everything seemed bright and wonderful, distant from the bloodshed of war. This was of course till October 23rd when the bombs fell and the raider was hurried into Vault 111 with his wife and child. We all know what happens next, and after escaping the vault, the raider will look for his son, but will slowly descend into a life of aggression and slaughter. Before I get into the faction choices for the raider, I will issue a standard spoiler warning. At FudgeMuppet, we're going to keep faction and big quest storylines very vague, but we will be telling you the factions this build will be working with. So if you are unaware of all the joinable factions you can work with in the main storyline, and you really don't want to know, then beware because we're about to talk about it right now. So with that said, let's talk about faction choices, motive, and behavior in the Wasteland. After leaving Vault 111 in search of his son, the raider will not begin crazed, but he will certainly be frantic and really pissed off. He's been left in a destroyed version of the world he once prospered in, without the ones he loved, and without any opportunity to go back to the career he once enjoyed. The raider will dress in pretty regular gear like road leathers. After being attacked by real raiders in Concord, the raider build will once again get a taste for taking the life of another. He does not feel bad, however, because he was defending himself and it needed to be done. While true in this case, it is this mentality that the raider carries throughout the game. The super mutants in Trinity Tower must be killed so that Strong can escape. Anyone who doesn't give him what he wants in the wasteland must be eradicated so that he can find his son. Synths need to be saved at all costs, and anyone who stands between him and this goal will die. Now I say this specifically because we recommend working with the Railroad as the raider, as he will be able to stand behind their noble cause and use it as an excuse to kill hundreds of people. He does think he cares about synths, but in reality he's using it as an excuse to fuel his addiction for death. In conversation, the raider will act fairly normal to shopkeepers and faction members, so in a sense he's a bit sociopathic. He only gets unnecessarily aggressive when he can rationalize it, but of course there's a lot of wiggle room with this. You might want to flat out murder some traders because you need stim packs to help yourself find your son or help the Railroad. This way of thinking also works with the Brotherhood of Steel. The raider can join the Brotherhood and use their ideals to justify widespread killings. He will also hate the Institute for what they do and have done, and this hatred will fuel him towards acts of unthinkable horror. Any obstacle that stands between him and his so-called greater good must be killed. He tells himself that this is the right thing to do, but even he knows deep down that his enjoyment has become dependent on slaughter. After the situation in Concord where you first meet Preston, the raider refuses to join the Minutemen and will start to wear basic raider armor shortly after. He does this to blend in with the aggressive types of the wasteland and also to intimidate his enemies. The raider doesn't believe he's a raider, but over time he will eventually kill and pillage in the name of whatever cause he can find but really doesn't care about, and eventually will completely transform into a true raider. He will continue to add pieces of raider gear to his clothing that he believes he needs to scare away evil until he fully becomes the evil and is no longer recognizable. The raider will enter the wasteland with 10 strength, 1 perception, 10 endurance, 1 charisma, 1 intelligence, 1 agility, and 4 luck. Keep in mind that in Fallout 4 you can start with a stat being 10 and then make it 11 after getting the bobblehead for it. We're then going to use the special book you find in Sanctuary to put an additional special point into luck, making it 5. Like any build, don't forget to get the perception bobblehead in the room you find Preston Garvey. If you don't know where the special book is or where the special bobbleheads are, we'll leave links in the description to our guides we made on where to find them. You'll also want to get the other bobbleheads as fast as you can. You can also get the melee bobblehead in the room where you first discover the super mutant companion named Strong. We've chosen 10 strength to give this build the most melee damage possible for a start game character, and it of course represents the brute strength the raider possesses. In the character customization, you're going to want to make the body of the raider as muscly as possible. Strength will also of course help the raider carry more gear, which is always useful. We only have 1 perception to start the game, as the raider tends to be easily distracted and only focus on what is in front of him. In his time with the military, he was a weapon. Others in his squad would often tell him where enemies were, but once he knew this, their chances of survival were very slim. 10 endurance has been chosen to enhance the tough as nails feel this build has, and also represents the very fit and sturdy nature the raider has always had. 1 charisma has been chosen for the raider because he is not the type to negotiate, and because he's not one for conversation, his charisma is quite underdeveloped. While playing the raider, you will still attempt the intimidating speech checks, but even if you fail, it doesn't matter because you'll follow through with your threat, killing those who stand in your way or threaten you. The raider has 1 intelligence, as he's never been the smartest guy and had to work really hard to just scrape through high school. He's never really craved expanding his knowledge and is more satisfied by physical stimulus, such as exercise and combat. Don't worry about his leveling speed because we do have a solution for this. The raider will actually start with 1 agility, and while we know you choose your special stats in the pre-war section, we're gonna roleplay that the raider was once more agile than he currently is, but spending 200 years in Vault 111 has messed with his agility-based functions. We will improve the raider's agility throughout the game to make him even more unstoppable in battle. Finally, we're having 4 luck simply because the raider isn't unlucky in any way, and also because we're getting the Idiot Savant perk after getting the special book in Sanctuary. We will also be utilizing heaps of criticals in the playstyle later on, so luck is definitely a necessary stat for streaming cinematic finishes. Be sure to use VATs in your playstyle quite often so you can end up saving critical hits to use against the toughest enemies. Now it's time to get into the meat of this build and go through every single perk point the raider will allocate all the way up to level 50. If you didn't watch our last build, The Scientist, we're explaining perks up to level 50 for our Fallout 4 builds, and then anything beyond this will be up to you. Also, you can change any of our perk decisions to create your own versions of our builds, but this is what we recommend. So straight off the bat, we're getting the Idiot Savant perk. This is going to completely counter the character's low intelligence in terms of leveling by giving us a random chance to get 3 times the amount of XP for doing something. The less intelligence you have, the more chance there is for this to occur. With 1 intelligence, we have around a 12% chance of getting it, and then after we get the intelligence bobblehead, we've got about a 10% chance. We're then getting the first rank of the Big Leagues perk to cause 20% more damage with our melee weapons, and this perk is a staple of the Raider. We'll be getting all the ranks over time. We're then getting a favorite perk of mine called Rooted, and at the first rank this is going to give us plus 25 damage resistance and make us cause 25% more damage with melee and unarmed weapons while standing still. I absolutely love this perk, and having it early is helpful so you can cause more damage and take less, but also because you'll have the most amount of game time to learn how to best use it. What you can actually do with this perk is use a moving attack, such as a sprinting attack, and as your swing takes place, you let go of the movement controls before the hit connects. This allows you to gain the extra damage and resistance from Rooted, while still being able to launch attacks to hit moving enemies. For more information on how to use this perk and why I love it so much, we'll put a link to our video on the Rooted perk in the description. We're then getting the Armorer perk so we can focus on improving our gear from the start of the game. We want to get some Raider gear and make it look as intimidating and fortified as possible as soon as possible. We're then getting the Life Giver perk for 20 more points of health, and then the second rank of Big Leagues to cause 40% more damage with our melee weapons and have a chance to disarm our targets. We're then getting the first rank of the Solar Powered perk, and I find the first rank of Solar Powered to be my favorite. During the daylight hours from 6 AM to 6 PM, the Raider is going to gain plus 2 strength and plus 2 endurance, giving him 12 strength and 12 endurance during the day, and after you get the bobbleheads, this will be 13 strength and 13 endurance. This is of course absolutely beast. The strength rivals that of power armor and makes this build very hard to kill and cause extremely high melee damage. We're also not getting the other ranks of Solar Powered as we don't think they're worth it for this character. We're then getting the Blacksmith perk so we can start crafting some deadly looking weapons to kill people with, and then finally at level 10 we're getting the second rank of Life Giver to instantly gain 20 more points of maximum HP. Reaching level 11, we're going to be getting the second rank of Idiot Savant, and this is going to give us a chance to get 5 times as much XP for doing something, and with this we'll be getting more XP to help us level than ever before. We're then getting the first rank of Toughness for plus 10 damage resistance, and then we're getting the second rank for plus 20 damage resistance. This will help make the Raider even harder to damage, allowing him to focus more on killing his opponents and even less on his own well-being. Speaking of which, we're then getting the second rank of Armorer to create even cooler gear and protect us even more in combat. Believe me, with any melee build that isn't a stealth character and doesn't really use guns, you're going to want to be extremely fortified because sometimes you just can't help having to soak up a ton of damage. We're then getting the third rank of Big Leagues, giving us 60% more damage with melee weapons and an even bigger chance to disarm our opponents with melee strikes. Now you're going to want to get the Intelligence bobblehead if you haven't got it already, because the Raider is going to start investing in the Medic perk. Remember, you can find our guide on where to find this in the description. The first rank of Medic makes Stimpaks restore 40% of your max health, and Radaway removes 40% of radiation. Because this is based off percentages, this works out awesomely for high endurance characters because you're healing more health points because you have lots of HP. Next, we're starting to invest in the Adamantium Skeleton perk to reduce our limb damage, and at the first rank it's going to be reduced by 30%. If your Raider character is going to be using power armor all the time, which ours isn't, then Adamantium Skeleton might not be as necessary. We're then getting the second rank of Medic to make Stimpaks restore 60% of max health and make Radaway remove 60% of radiation. We're then getting the second rank of Adamantium Skeleton to reduce limb damage by 60%, and at level 20 we're getting the final rank of Life Giver to get another boost of 20 to our max HP, and at this rank we're also going to slowly regenerate health over time. As you can see, this build now has an awesome foundation for causing plenty of melee damage and simply refuses to die. At level 21, we're getting the third rank of Toughness to have plus 30 damage resistance, and then we're getting the second rank of Rooted, which will make you cause a massive 50% additional damage with melee and unarmed attacks while standing still, keeping in mind that if you use the technique I mentioned, you can get the bonus while using a moving attack and letting go of the movement controls before the strike connects. You're also going to have plus 50 damage resistance while standing still with the second rank of the Rooted perk. Sometimes the raid will momentarily stand still in combat and soak up easy damage to intimidate his opponents, line them up, and then sprint towards them before tearing them apart. Once we get the moving target perk, we'll also be fortified against attacks while sprinting. We're then getting the second rank of the Blacksmith perk to craft even more gnarly weapons. After this, it's time to finally start investing in agility for later on. So now we're putting one perk point into agility. Next, we're getting the third rank of Armorer to further improve our gear, then the third rank of Adamantium Skeleton to remove our limb damage entirely. Then we're getting the fourth rank of Big Leagues, giving the Raider 80% more damage with his melee weapons and be able to damage multiple enemies in front of him in one strike. Next, we're putting another point into agility, which helps us with our sprinting and allows for a lot more VATS gameplay, especially seeing as the Raider has a decent amount of luck. Then we're getting the third and final rank of Blacksmith to craft even better Instruments of Death, and if you find that you desperately want something that needs the science perk such as the Stunning Super Sledge, you can just buy it. We find that science is definitely not necessary for this character, and it would require way too much investment in intelligence, and our damage is so high we just don't need it. This is especially true when we're using heaps of criticals after we end up getting luck perks. Next up, at level 30, we're getting the third rank of Medic so that our Stimpaks restore a huge 80% of our max health, and our Radaway of course removes 80% of our radiation. At level 31, we're getting the fourth rank of Toughness for an effective plus 40 damage resistance, and at level 32 and 33, we're spending our perk points on agility. We're definitely going to want the agility bobblehead now to get 6 agility, and after getting it, we're going to spend our next perk point on the first rank of moving target. Then, at the next level, which is level 35, we're getting the second rank of moving target. With 2 ranks of moving target, the Raider is going to get plus 50 damage resistance and plus 50 energy resistance when sprinting. This works fantastic with Rooted because you can now rush your enemies while having heaps of protection, then do a sprinting forwards attack, let go of the movement, and have the protection of Rooted and the 50% extra damage from Rooted when your strike pummels into your targets. Now the Raider is not just powerful and hard to kill, but he's very fast and has protection whether he's sprinting or holding his ground. Because of this, we recommend using a combat style which uses a lot of sprinting and then standing. If you're just running normally without sprinting, you're missing out on both the moving target perk and Rooted. Next up, we're investing a perk point in luck, and we're going to go and find the luck bobblehead now as well. As I said, the link for finding all these bobbleheads are in the description. Now at level 37, we're getting Critical Banker, which we've now got 7 luck for. Critical Banker is going to let us store a critical hit so that we can use 2 critical hits in a row against a single tough enemy, or even 2 tough enemies in melee range. We're then getting the first rank of better criticals to make these critical hits do 50% more damage. As you can see, this build has a massive foundation in being ridiculously strong and sturdy, and now as we've progressed later in the game, we can add on these nice extras to take our combat to an even more fun and powerful level. We're then getting the final rank of Armor so we can craft the biggest best set of Raider armor. Then at level 40, we're getting the second rank of Critical Banker to store another critical hit to be unleashed in a flurry of crit strikes against our enemies. At level 41, we're getting the second rank of Better Critical so that our critical attacks do twice as much extra damage, and then we're going to get the 5th and final rank of Big Leagues. And now our melee attacks will do twice as much damage, and we have a chance to cripple our opponents with melee, or, no joke, grand slam their head clean off. You'll get a funny sound effect when this occurs. I also want to say that the 5th rank of big leagues is glitched, and it will show you that your weapons have gone back to base damage, but I assure you this is not the case. The damage for big leagues isn't glitched, only the display is. Next up, the Raider is getting the final rank of the Rooted perk, and this gives you a chance to disarm enemies who attack you with melee weapons. I don't know what the exact chance is, but after playing a melee build for my first playthrough, I can confidently say it happens quite often. Next up, we're getting the final rank of Moving Target, which makes sprinting cost 50% fewer action points for the Raider. This is going to enhance the start-stop sprint playstyle of the build, allowing you to sprint for ages before you plant in front of your enemies and smash them to bits. Remember, while you can do the sprinting power attack and let go of movement, it's also effective to sprint into an enemy and immediately press block, because when you make contact with them, they almost always bash. Then after you block their bash, they will stagger, and because you've conserved your action points, you can press power attack, which will likely register as a kill and lead to an awesome finisher. Next up, you'll want the 3rd rank of Better Criticals, and this will make all your critical hits cause 2.5 times as much additional damage. Following this, we're getting the final rank of Toughness to have plus 50 damage resistance, and at the next level, we're getting the final rank of Critical Banker. Now we can store 3 critical hits to be used in VATS, and this essentially lets you have 4 critical hits to use because this doesn't include your standard critical meter. Also, with this final rank, banking a critical hit has a chance to save an additional critical hit for you to use. Now the Raider is a master of speed, strength, and endurance, but we're gonna make him even fitter using the Action Boy perk. We get this next, and this makes our action points regenerate 25% faster, which means more sprinting, more power attacks, more VATS use, and more banking of critical hits, which almost always become critical kills. We're then getting the final rank of Medic so that our stim packs heal all our health and right away removes all our radiation. This will allow us to actually conserve more stim packs and right away, and almost entirely negates the possibility of death unless you're playing on survival difficulty. If you want to play on survival difficulty, that's up to you, but all our builds are made for normal difficulty. That said, the Scientist and the Raider can both survive easily on survival difficulty towards the end of the game. So maybe you want to play on normal up to level 50 and then switch to survival mode to provide you with more of a challenge and more legendary gear. Finally, at level 50, we're getting the 2nd rank of Action Boy so that our action points regenerate 50% faster. And there you have it, that's the perks for a beast melee build, the Raider. Now if you want to take this build even further with melee and make it truly the best, we recommend investing further in agility so you can get the Blitz perk. This allows you to cause more damage with your VATS attacks and gives you a massive range. You basically teleport into the range of enemies and then attack them. We thought Blitz didn't really suit this character, and there were a lot of other perks and special stats we wanted to invest in before level 50. Without Blitz, this character is near unstoppable, but like I said, once you surpass level 50, go for it. Also, as I mentioned, this character doesn't really need power armor, and we didn't use it for our Raider. But if you want to use power armor for even more protection, you can. You could then invest in Pain Train after investing in Blitz. We didn't find it necessary, but hey, if you want overkill, the opportunity is there. The endgame special stats for the Raider without any gear are as follows: 11 strength, 2 perception, 11 endurance, 2 charisma, 2 intelligence, 6 agility, and 7 luck. So that's how to build the Raider, but what about the gear we're using? Well, the gear is going to be explained as early game, mid game, and end game. This doesn't really refer to your progress in the main storyline, but more so your level. Remember that this build only uses melee, but you will need to carry a gun of your choice to take out enemies that are actually impossible to reach with melee. Looking at early game gear, the Raider is going to put on a pair of road leathers which you can find on a dead Raider, and then mix and match whatever Raider gear you can. You'll want to aim towards a full set of Raider armor, and you'll want to upgrade this to the best of your abilities. On the legs, you'll want the Strengthened mod to reduce limb damage, as of course we haven't got all the ranks of Adamantium Skeleton yet. On the arms, we'll want the Brace mod to reduce additional melee damage while blocking. On the torso piece, we'll want the asbestos lining mod, which we will use the whole game. This increases energy resistance and prevents you from being set on fire. You should be able to make all of this buttressed too. While you're missing pieces of raider gear or even just for start game preference, you can also use pieces of metal armor as they can definitely fit in with a raider aesthetic. For your helmet slot, however, you're going to want to use the sack hood with straps for an extra intimidating look, and until you get this, you can use any sack hood variation or even a bandana. In terms of weapons, you'll need to use whatever you can find, such as tire irons and baseball bats. We think baseball bats work pretty well. We also recommend heading to the combat zone to find Kate and use her as a companion for her lockpicking skills. You may not want to keep her as a companion, but at least go and get her, head to Hubris Comics and get Grognak's axe. This axe causes extra bleeding damage and makes targets stagger more. The finishes with this axe also make you feel like a real executioner kind of character. You can also get the Furious Power Fist from Swan Lake, and even though this is an unarmed weapon, it works well at the start of the game because you have high strength and very little melee perk investment. Killing Swan early can be difficult, but we think you can manage if you prepare. If you want to know how to get Grognak's axe and the Furious Power Fist, we've made guides for you on how to get them, and these can be found in the description. Remember to upgrade things like your baseball bat to make them as scary looking and high damage as possible. There are also a few bought weapons which are decent, like the Rockville Slugger from Diamond City, and you can also buy General Chow's Revenge from Trudy in Drumlin Diner, and this does 50% extra damage against robots, which is helpful because they have high normal damage resistance. You might also want to get Shemdrown's Sword, which is a unique revolutionary sword that does radiation damage. With mid-game gear, you're going to want to replace your normal Raider armor set with sturdy Raider armor pieces, and make these pieces buttressed as well. We're keeping the same mod on the chest piece, but on the legs we're getting the custom fitted mod, and this reduces sprint AP cost. On the arms we're going to have the aerodynamic mod, and this makes your power attacks drain less action points. Overall, this will make the build have a lot more energy to spare on high damage attacks and sprinting. You'll be keeping your sack hood with straps for the whole game, but if you really want something else, then go for it. Sturdy Raider armor will make the Raider look even chunkier and more brutal than ever before. Looking at mid-game weapons, some good ones are the Shish Kebab, which fits in well with the Raider theme of the build, and a heated Super Sledge, which you can create after finding a normal Super Sledge or buying one. General Chow's Revenge, Grognak's Axe, and the Rockville Slugger are all still good for mid-game weapons. You'll want to use the Blacksmith perk to upgrade your weapons as much as possible. The unique Poison Machete, Krem's Tooth, is also nice for a mid-game melee weapon, as is Pikmin's Blade and the 2076 World Series Baseball Bat. Like all our other stuff, we've got guides on how to get these weapons in the description too, so be sure to have a look so you know where to find them. In terms of endgame armor, you're going to want a full set of heavy Raider armor. This is the biggest, baddest set of Raider armor there is, and you're going to want to have that same asbestos mod on the massive chest piece yet again. You're going to want the custom fitted mod on the legs again as well, but on the arms you'll want the weighted mod. This will make your melee attacks actually ignore some of your target's armor, making the Raider immensely powerful. With endgame weapons, you're going to have upgrade versions of your mid-game weapons or the same mid-game weapons as before. Most of the weapons we said you can get for a mid-game Raider are still great at the end of the game, so pick the ones you've enjoyed the most. If you want an extended Ripper, you can get one, but we don't think this build needs it. If you're looking to improve anything, you could buy a stunning Super Sledge for yourself and maybe even your companion. Speaking of which, the Raider doesn't tend to like the company of those who will question his actions, and therefore the companion Strong makes a great choice for this build. Strong likes when you steal, he likes it when you choose aggressive or violent options in dialogue, and he likes it when you accept less reputable quests like mercenary work. He also loves it when you murder people. Strong fits in well with the Raider, but he gets pretty pissy if you join the Brotherhood of Steel, and also dislikes when you enter power armor. So if you are planning on changing this build to wear power armor all the time, and you've decided on joining the Brotherhood of Steel, then maybe Strong isn't for you. We've found Kate to also be a compatible companion for the Raider, especially for a Brotherhood playthrough, as she likes when you help them. This is of course just what we recommend. If you think another companion fits in with the choices and perspectives of the Raider, you can use them. Any romance is up to you. In terms of settlements, the raider only really needs one home. You can have more if you want, but we recommend a single base decked out with turrets, flamethrower traps to give attackers a slow, painful death, and really menacing raider looking stuff. And that wraps up the second Fallout 4 build of so many more to come on FudgeMuppet. If you want more builds like the Raider, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any. Like this video if you enjoyed our take on a more evil character in Fallout 4, and do share this video around if you think it deserves it. Our social media links can be found in the description if you have any questions or want to get on a more personal level with us. My name is Michael, this was the Raider, and I'll see everyone who is subscribed for more Fallout 4 very soon.